How important is X in a relationship? Hi Reddit guys, subscribe now, or I will get sick. Axial compatibility is more important than the act itself. If the pair of you are completely incompatible in terms of your desires, libido, kinks etc., then it's not going to work out. If you're mostly similar, and are willing to communicate openly and properly with each other, then the relationship is far more likely to work. I very much agree with this. Differences in X drive and expectations between two people should be understood and openly discussed to create a foundation that can weather issues that inevitably will pop up over time. For my wife, X is very important in our relationship. She wants to be desired and is a very physical person. I can tell a difference in her when this need is not being met. For me, X is somewhat less important and I have a lower X drive than her. What's more important for me is someone that I can be intimate with, but this doesn't necessarily need to be in terms of X all the time. Because I know that my wife is going to want X more often and values it a little higher than me. I try to make sure that we don't go too long without having it. I also openly communicate with her about how I am still very attracted to her and enjoy our X whenever we have it. I just naturally have less of a drive for it than her. To compensate for that difference, I will try to use other ways of conveying intimacy to her, either verbally or through touch, so she is getting some consistent feedback in those areas. I'm not always great at this, but I try and she can see that. I disagree somewhat with some of the comments saying you must find someone with the same X expectations as you. It's an important factor, but every couple is going to have a variance between their axial desires, drives, expectations at some point, if not constant. It's all about how open you are about it and what actions you take to address it. This is beautifully said. I am in a similar situation to you, but I am the higher libido wife. This was very difficult to adjust to in the beginning of the marriage, because of what society had taught me about how men are always thinking about wanting X, and it gave me insecurity issues. My thought was, if I was just more attractive, desirable, he would definitely want to have X more. It took me a while, and lots of communication, understanding between us, to realize that this was just the way he was wired, and had nothing to do with how attracted he was to me. That is, he would probably be the same way in any relationship he was in, no matter what his partner looked like. But it's not realistic to try to find someone with the exact same libido, because libidos shift and change with life events. After giving birth, my libido dropped to slightly below his 4 years, which was actually really nice for me, because he was initiating more often and I felt more desirable. Now, it's about up to pre-childbirth levels. With my husband, if he's feeling anxious, stressed, or depressed, he is simply not going to be in the mood, possibly for a week or more. A good relationship is having love and understanding for the different things your partner is going through and helping them continue to feel loved in different ways through it all by meeting them where they're at, as in the examples you gave. I enjoy X. But if something happened that prevented X with my wife, I would still love her and be faithful. Our relationship is much more than just X. But that is after 14 years of marriage, 3 kids, and some major events. We are in this journey together no matter what. My parents have been together 30 years, this year, and 2 kids. They sleep in separate bedrooms, but still love each other very much. My mum snores. My dad has bad night terrors. He likes to go to bed early and read, and my mum likes to stay up late watching movies with us kids, both living at home for a bit. As a 26-year-old, it's nice to see that love means a lot more than X. I've only been with my husband for a decade, but I feel the same way. After just 5 years of marriage, I was going through such a horrible time dealing with severe PTSD from axial trauma. I mean, I spent a year sleeping on the floor in a closet in a different room. Yet he was loyal and understanding and has been there for me through so much. It's really great to focus on spending your life with the person you would call your best friend. Because things will change. You might even feel like you fall in and out of love. But if you really truly are friends, it can get you through all the times you don't necessarily feel romantically attracted to them or you don't even like them. That happens and it's normal, but it's so much easier to get through when the foundation of your relationship was friendship. I love that. As important as the people in the relationship deem it to be. So that ranges from critically important, and validly so, to completely unimportant and validly so. I so agree with this. My ex drive has been killed due to recent brain surgery and vaginismus. X hurts me right now, but I'm in physical and mental therapy. X is very important to my partner, but he knows it hurts. We do lots of oral and lots of kissing and cuddling. I constantly tell him he's handsome. I love him. I think he's Xy while I try to get my body to feel how my brain does. My brain wants X, but my body is still recovering and dealing with a vaginismus. We talk about it and he knows when I'm ready, we will do PIVX. We are working on it. While I believe X is important, if that's your thing, X cannot be the only way you show want, desire, and intimacy. You have to allow your partner to not feel like having X even when you want it. You have to be respectful of each other's needs and also communicate. Vaginismus is so hard. I have struggled with it for years and been in therapy as well. Cyber hug. What's vaginismus? If you don't mind me asking. Would rather hear it explained by a real person than webbed. So basically your PPL muscles are so tight that X feels like you're being torn apart. In my case, I have knots, like you would in your back, in my PP. It can be so tight that you can't insert tampons. It's painful, stress-induced, but can be helped and fixed with practice and techniques. I think it's important to have that intimate, physical bond with your partner. However, I believe that it also completely depends on who you're with. I think that intimate bond is heaps important, but whether that's felt through X or just body massages, back scratches, hand holding, etc., that's up to the individuals. This is also where I appreciate understanding my partner's love languages. Some people feel loved via massages and hand holding, while others prefer quality time or gifts, etc. My wife has, since she was young, been in the practice of folding her ears over in half and forming a vacuum. She's even able to make cute little squeaks in the same fashion as an armpit fart. I know I am closest to her heart when she is mashing her folded ear against my skull, similar to a cat rubbing their face on something. 5 years together and I unconsciously just go with it whenever. This is the weirdest, cutest thing I've ever heard. It's important your X drives are similar. How do you deal with X drives that are not similar? My wife wants X about 3 times a month. I want X about 10 times a month. So we compromise and have X about 3 times a month. 27 days of fapping should fill in the gaps. Man, the number of times that I'm independently horny is infinitesimal compared to the number of times I want to have X with my wife. Fapping does not fill in that gap at all, because it is doing something alone when what you want is connection. While the act itself might not be super important, the intimacy that goes along with it is very important. Also, the feeling of being desired is a very important aspect to a healthy relationship, and from things I have read, it's the number one reason people cheat. If they aren't feeling desired by their partner, they will tend to look for that elsewhere. So the ignored partner might be swayed to cheat if someone else is providing them with that desire they aren't getting from their partner. That's what I always tell my current girlfriend of 8 years. She thinks I just want X, but I just want to feel wanted. I don't want to initiate it every time. It gets old and after a while starts feel like it's just pity X. I'm currently ending a 10-year marriage in which my partner realized they were asexual a couple years in. We were very compatible in a lot of other ways, which is why it lasted as long as it did. But I eventually came to realize that I couldn't be happy with the deep lack of intimacy that came from our polar opposite X drives. We couldn't so much as snuggle in the couch without setting myself up for rejection. Eventually I just stopped asking, because I could tell it was traumatic for them, but that just made the intimacy gap even wider. I still feel guilty for initiating the divorce, but I just couldn't stand to live like that for the rest of my life. I was a husk. It's not so much that we weren't having X, but that basically all physical intimacy had to go to make the no X bearable. This is literally me. My 8-year marriage ends next week. Wife stopped sleeping with me like 3 years ago, as well as cut off all physical affection of any kind. She said she just wasn't a sexual person and was tired of saying yes every time I asked when she didn't enjoy it. Now she's in love with some other guy as of 3 months ago. Apparently she figured out she just wasn't attracted to me. We stayed together the last couple years because we were basically best friends, so we were still somewhat happy and the companionship was nice. Hopefully I'm off to better things soon. Christmas was a shoot show, which is when I found out about the other guy. Grieving sucks. That's terrible. I hope things get better for you. What's most important is that you're sexually compatible, like both have high X drives or lower X drives. If you're not, it may cause a lot of strain and compromising that will affect the relationship. Every relationship is different as to whether it's important or not. To me personally, it's not important. I would have a relationship even if X was not involved, but a lot of people consider it a crucial part of the relationship. For me, and I'm sure a lot of others, X is important. But it's not as much the X itself, it's that X usually comes from a feeling of desire, and I like to feel like I'm desired. At least growing up with abandonment issues. It definitely seems to fill a hole. Yeah, it does. I agree. It makes you very vulnerable and intimate with someone, and it's definitely that feeling of being desired in the most intimate way. And the flip side of that is if you want to have X and your S. Oh, doesn't it can unfortunately make you feel undesirable and unwanted. So for that reason, I would say X can be very important. Okay Reddit guys, subscribe now, or I will get sick.